Ndi musanyufu nnyo olunaku lwaleero neera baganda baffe bakyali eyo manju mujje tukole hello abakyali eyo ka breakfast tutandika abakyali eyo ku breakfast bakyali emanju eyo ekyali abaliyo magala kale mwebale nnyo mwewalire ddala nga bulijjo tuzze tukola ffenna ebbanga lyonna n'olwaleero musazeewo ne mujja olwaleero tuli ku budde okusingako nga bwe tubadde tubeera ndowooza mu ddakiika 3 saawa omu tujja kuba tuvuddeyo wano mpozi sawunti enaba kutereera bulungi Moses sawunti enaba kutereera bulungi sawundi kakyabulamu then tuli set tugende olunaku lwaleero 13 omwezi ogwokubiri 2023 ze zimu ku press conference zaffe zetujja tukola eza buli bwa Monday. Tulina omukisa olunaku lwaleero okubeera nti pulezidenti waffe Joseph Kabuleta tuli naye n'abakulembeze abalala SG waali national spokesperson waali n'abalala bakyajja bajja tusanga mpolampola mutegezeddwako nti organizing secretary ali mu kkubo alina ensonga zayagala okusimba ne bw'anaaba atuuse nga tukyali ku streak yaffe tunaamu omuzindalo kati munzikirize ntandike n'okuyita national spokesperson waffe atwale mu nteekateeka nga bwegenda okubeera mwebale nnyo mwebalire ddala sebo tweyanziza akatundu ku tuttemu ndowooza butatwala nnyo budde olwaleero tugenda kwogera ku budget kubanga kyekintu ekikulu ekigenda mu maaso mu ggwanga naye abatakifuddeeko nnyo so obukulembeze bwa NED bwasazeewo okitwala nga nsonga era mu kanyomero kano nsaba okuyita president obeereko ensonga bwozitaanya okay Secretary General kasooke atutwala mu kitundu ekisooka.
Thank you very much, spokesperson. Thank you, spokesperson, members of media, our president, and all members of NED. Good morning. Today, again, we are here to have a conversation about things that matter in this country. For some time, you people from the media, there are two things. Number one, you've been asking where is the president of NED? So to some of you, my answer has been that the president runs so many things, not just the press conference. The president must be everywhere to make sure that this organization works, but because he's the head of it. Secondly, you've been asking us to talk about the budget. Specifically, last week you asked us that given our position as NED, because you think we are so much aligned, oriented towards the economy, that there is no other organization that understands this economy like NED. We appreciate that compliment, and that you wanted our comment or our take on the budget framework paper. Of course, this year is very, very unusual. And for me, Mr. President, what I am used to is that budgets have always been, the discussions about budgets have always been around June, May, June. This time, I think it is the first year when we have Parliament passing, Assembly is almost passing a budget in January. Yeah? It's a framework, but the way the twist, the twist, the entire twist, this discussion took, it was as if it is a concluded matter. It wasn't as usual. So, of course, it begs the question, why? Why did it take that direction? But we obviously know that one of them should be the state of the economy. These guys have mismanaged the economy to the core. Now, it is a discussion that seems to be cropping out of panic. It is a discussion. We know that once they have discussed and passed a framework paper like they've passed, probably even the spending, by the time they pass this budget, most likely the spending will have already been done, and in the next financial year we shall be surviving on supplementary. I imagine that has always been done, Mr. President, under a semblance of a normal situation. Now, this we seem to be moving towards an abnormal situation. If you look at the allocation, okay, generally budgets are instruments of development, some kind of development that guides development. It also tells you where a government, where the focus of government is, what the government wants to do. But you see, for us here, I'm just being general. For us here in this country, they will put a lot of money in education, yet pictures coming from Rukungiri, pictures of schools are of rotten iron sheets. A school which is really rotten, that really should be declared unfit for human beings to be there. They will allocate in defense, Mr. President. There is also another thing that I wonder, that all over the country, in all the countries in the world, all over the countries in the world, I normally see once there are years under which they declassify certain information, including budgetary allocation. But in this country, it is only in Uganda that since 1986, we have never had any classified budget declassified, so that at least we do a postmortem. Mr. President, I would do with that kind of background within our budget. I know you have the specifics. I invite you to talk to the country, sir.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Spokesperson, I request kindly that the things I say, you write them down, because I want you to speak them in English. Sorry, in Luganda, because my Luganda is not good enough to say some of these things. So please, you'll help me interpret them to Luganda. So my issue, my first issue with the budget, you know, generally speaking, budgets are divided between income and expenditure. Now, so much of our discussions here about the expenditure, who is getting what, and in the next few months after the framework is up, the budget committee is going to be in some hotel. Last year they were at Serena Chigo, and all ministries, permanent secretaries were there lobbying the budget committee to give them more money, please increase our allocation, and so on. So it's about how to split the resource envelope. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, there are two kinds of budgets. You know, apart from, you know, expenditure and income, there is also the budget for the country, and then there is the budget which is classified, not classified expenditure, classified budget. For instance, now we are dealing with a budget of almost 50 trillion shillings, 49.88 trillion, or 49.9 trillion. But of that, 37% is going towards paying loans and interest for existing loans, 37% of it. And their domestic revenue is expected to be about 28 point something, 28.3 or 4, up here 28.8 trillion shillings. And 93% of the domestic revenue is going to come from taxation. Now that means that URA is going to be given a target that is even stiffer than the one they've had this year. And in order for them to try to, I don't know if they will succeed, but try to get the targets they were given of 25.5 trillion this year, they have done what I call a scorched earth policy. They have burnt down businesses, burnt down enterprises, everything startup has been burnt down. Basically, they are scorched earth just to get the 25 trillion. But now the amount of money that they have to get has increased by 3.2 trillion for the, okay, it's going to, after it is eventually passed, but I'm going by the framework, will have increased by 3.2 trillion. Now, if they have burnt down everything, and yet they must go and get 3.2 trillion from somewhere, the question is, where are they going to get it? But then, my issue, and here is now where I come in, my issue is that there is a lot of national income which is not reflected in our budget. Some years back, our biggest income earner through exports were coffee, cotton, and tea, and things like that. Now, those have fallen to just 14%, up there about about 14% of our of the income. The biggest income, which was, now I'm dealing with some figures from some years back, which are compiled now. Of course, the current ones are not. The biggest incomes come from minerals, pearls, precious stones, metals, coins. That's the biggest income. In 2020, it was $1.82 billion, which is like 6.5 trillion Uganda shillings. And yet coffee in the same year was $601 million, which means the income from gold and other precious stones is 3 times the income of coffee. Now, what I find interesting, there is no reflection of that income on the budget. So where does that money go? Because you can't have a budget when the country is earning, the biggest income earner is not reflected in the resources or in the resource envelope that is put there, or is made very light mention of in the resource envelope. And yet in every year, they are actually spending money in improving our mineral capacity. But then, having improved it off the money they collect from taxes, they don't show us how much now we are getting from the minerals. Now that was some years, 2020, 1.82 billion, which is about $1 billion, which is about 6.5 trillion. Now, in the same year, Uganda exported gold. Now, this is interesting because this was when you were locked down. Stay home and stay home, stay safe. When you were in your houses being burnt in your Mabati houses, Uganda exported $3.47 billion worth of gold, making 28th largest exporter of gold in the world. $3.47 billion of gold, making it the 28th largest export of gold in the world, while you were home scared of COVID. And the main destination for our gold, United Emirates, South Korea, Hong Kong, Philippines, even America. That was 2020. In the same year, Uganda also imported 1.97 billion of gold, becoming the 18th largest importer of gold in the world. In the world. The main source of our gold, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Namibia, Congo, and so on and so forth. So, there was a big gold trade going on in 2020, where you were staying home and staying safe, where we were the 28th largest exporter of gold and the 18th largest importer of gold in the world. So now that means that of all the gold that was exported and imported, our net gold export, which was supposedly coming from Uganda, was $1.5 billion. That is the net. So all that was going on in that statement. And in the same year, in actually March 27th, 2020, a few days after the president had locked down the country because of COVID, he commissioned the Sunbelt Mining Group factory in Karamoja, in a village called Nanyidik, in Rupa Sub-County, in Matheniko County, in Moroto District. Now, that place has an estimated 560 metric tons of marble. And that factory, which is owned by Chinese, is one of 5 factories that are said to be built in the same Matheniko County, targeting the incredible mineral wealth in that place. Now, also about that time, our iron and steel, which has been mostly coming from southwestern Uganda, we got about 246 billion. Now that has increased in this year, the years that come afterwards. Also crude oil, which officially we only started doing the other day, but if you go to the world-renowned export websites, Uganda was 122nd out of 145 crude oil exporting countries in 2020, when officially we had not yet started drilling our oil, but we were one of the listed countries as crude oil exporters. Go and check it out. And the interesting thing that they even tell you how much money we earned from it, $98 million. Now, the Karamoja, the ceramics, okay, $11 million. We also had aluminium, zinc, copper, lead, nickel, tin. All those lead, nickel, and tin amount to about okay, not too much money, about $300 million. I mean $300,000, but still there's something. And still these are increasing because the copper had only started in 2020. Now it is increasing. The gold, by the way, while Mubenda and Kasanda were locked down, the Chinese were doing some serious prospecting for new gold sites in Mubenda and Kasanda. classified expenditure of this one which has come from the poor people. And then they will also take money for developing mineral resources from this budget, which has been collected by people. Because apart from the 29 trillion which they project, they are going to get some from external financing, loans, internal loans, financing for projects in the country, and so on. Nothing is made mention in the resource envelope of Uganda's mineral wealth. And the truth is 2023 is when it is coming to its head. All the figures we've mentioned of iron ore, of gold, of copper, of zinc, of aluminium, of ceramic products, all those things only just started flowing 2 years ago. 2023 is when they are coming to a head. Now we shall wait for the figures for 2023 of how much we've exported in all these things, and you realize that the budget is the big, because it just deals with